or you can have that thing that happens when you feed them.
Right? After midnight.
After
Don't
midnight.
get it. Don't get your niggle monster wet either. Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
How to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, sign up for more support with meeting your needs with your weekly Universal Needs notes at theuniversalneeds.com.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
So today we are doing the third and final episode in our friendship series. And today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, mainly because this is one of the ways in which my influence has been spreading to Serena, where you'll have noticed that there are certain Americanisms that I am taking on board. And there are moments where I'm definitely, especially because we made a decision a while ago that actually that the American English was going to be the kind of primary language we were going to use for the universe. And for a while we were kind of flip-flopping between the two, and some of our stuff had S's in it and some of them had Z's in it or Z's in it, depending which side of the pond I'm on at that particular moment in time.
Random U's
showing up. Yeah, it's like Serena's like, did you spell that wrong? I'm like, no, that's the English spelling. That's the British spelling.
Flavor sounds better than flavor.
Yeah. So I'm like kind of adopting all these American, and I'm pretty good normally about depending on who I'm speaking to, like using the correct terminology, because obviously some of the words are different over here and back home. So I'm like, if I'm speaking to my mum, I'll talk about going on holiday. If I'm speaking to someone over here, I'll talk about going on vacation. So I'm pretty good at sort of switching between the two, depending on who I'm speaking to. The challenge is that sometimes if on this, I don't know where in the world you are listening to me from right now. So I don't know whether you're a you person or an O person. I don't know whether you're a cilantro or a coriander person. And so sometimes I get a little kind of muddled between the two.
Cilantro and coriander?
Cilantro is coriander. Coriander is what we call it in Britain. And it's called cilantro over here. I know you also get coriander seeds, which is even more confusing. But it's the same thing. It's the same plant.
Huh.
Yeah.
The more you know, people.
Absolutely. It's funny. I remember when I used to come over here years ago with somebody else, like we'd make a joke of it. It'd be like, because a lot of like the recipes and the things I was looking for at the grocery store, they were like British recipes. So it would be like, do they have any coriander? No, they've only got cilantro. Do they have any rocket? No, they've only got arugula. We'd have fun with the different names. So anyway, so I am obviously adopting a lot of these kind of Americanisms the more time I spend here. But this is one which has gone the other way.
Is this a UK thing or is this a Claireism?
No, I think this is a UK. I mean, I use it a lot, but I do think this is a British thing that, like, if you said that to someone in Britain, they would know what you were talking about. Whereas when I first started using it over here, people were like, "You what?" Like it was like
I remember the first time. Have we even said what the bird
Not
is?
yet. No, I'm saving that. Like we're saving it as a little surprise. It was a little bit like when I first started using the word peckish. Like when I was over here, I'm like, "I'm peckish." You're what? I'm peckish. Like, the hell is that? And it's like peckish means like a little bit hungry. Like you're not hungry, but you're like just starting to get I'm starting to get a bit hungry. You're peckish.
Like a little baby bird.
Yeah, exactly. But most people are like, you what? So this is one of those terms that I use a lot. And I think most people in Britain would recognize at least and understand what it means. And that is the word niggle. And what happened when I said niggle to you for the first time?
What the fuck did you just say? She's like, Niggles. And I'm like, yeah, I heard you. What?
What the hell is that?
What's a niggle? And she's like, well, what's a niggle, Claire?
So what is a niggle? So a niggle, if something is niggling you, or a niggle is something that is like, it's like bothering you slightly. It's not something that's really a massive problem, But it's something where it's just slightly bothering you, just slightly irritating you. It's like it's a niggle. It's a niggle.
It's like the hair that's on your arm.
Yes.
And you're like, what the?
Where is that? How do I get rid of it?
It's not detrimental to your. For most people, it's not detrimental.
It's not a big problem.
A big problem, but it's like, what the hell? Like,
stop. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so and I use that term all the time because there are like different things, like to the extent at which something bothers me, like and especially because my needs are well met, a lot of the time things don't bother me in a big way. They just niggle me. So it's like, oh, this is niggling me. That's whatting you. Excuse me.
Is that a swear word?
No, it's a cool word. It's an awesome word. I just think it so accurately describes that feeling that you kind of get with those things that are like something's just bothering you a little bit. And it's helpful to be able to communicate that something is bothering you a little bit. It's not a big deal, but it is present.
And it might not even be like, I think a comparable word might, people might think is like an irritation. And it's like, it's almost like the step below an irritation.
Yeah, or before an irritation. Yeah, exactly. And so the reason that this is helpful, and I mean, obviously we've talked about like creating a friendship. We even create new words for what our friendship is, apparently, our friendship.
Is that a sprinkle friendship?
It could be a sprinkle friendship. Oh my God, I love that. Yes.
I don't even remember.
Or maybe a glenship. That'd be like a glitter friendship.
We'll think on it and bring it back and see.
Well, watch this space. Or we'll probably forget about it and never mention it again, which is actually more likely.
That's probably what's
but then anyway, so the thing about it is that we've talked about creating a friendship that works for both people. And we've talked about the importance of having the hard conversations and being willing to get uncomfortable and to go into that space of dealing with those things. And one of the things we talked about in that last episode is the fact that if there is something that needs to be talked about, it's gonna be present. Like energetically, you're gonna be able to feel it, whether it's being talked about or not. Now, when we're talking about what we were talking about in the last episode, is that we were obviously talking about things that were generally speaking more significant. There were some niggles in there because the tears on the sidewalk thing, that was a niggle. It wasn't a massive issue. It was a niggle. But because it was the first time we dealt with a niggle of that sort of description, that's why it was a big moment for us, because we hadn't yet got used to dealing with niggles, which meant that there was still that big level of discomfort around it and it felt like a big deal. So because these things are around anyway, and obviously if something is a more significant deal, you want to deal with that because that's going to affect the friendship. But the thing about it is that these things are going to be energetically present, whether you speak to it or not. And it's usually going to stay until it's dealt with, even if it's something small. And Serena and Serena is probably the first person that I've really done this with to this extent, which is that if there is something in the space, anything in the space, and
like absolutely anything,
no matter how seemingly small or insigniort, no matter how nigglish it is, I don't think that's a word, but it should be. It will be now.
Now it is.
Word. Yeah, there we go.
I need like a fairy wand, like
yes,
officially a word.
Ting, ting. Yeah, you heard it here first, and we actually remember what it is today that you heard here first. Nigglish. Though it doesn't matter how small it is, you still want to clear it. And in fact, the fact that things are small is when you want to clear it, because if you don't deal with it when it is small, either one of a couple of things can happen. If it is a small thing that is impacting your needs, whether you feel like it should be impacting your needs or not, whether you want it to impact your needs or not that you want things to impact your needs, that's kind of a weird thing to say, but if it is impacting your needs, if it's not dealt with, it's going to continue to impact those needs. And so the small things, the niggles, are things that actually can easily become big things because they haven't been dealt with. So that's the first thing. The other thing is that if you have one thing that you're niggled by and you don't clear it, and then you have another thing that niggles you and you don't clear that, and then you have another thing that niggles you, and all of these things are impacting your needs, one niggle compounds and compounds and compounds and compounds. And all of a sudden, again, it's a big thing, not because the one thing has become bigger, but because there's a whole bunch of small things that collectively now become a big deal.
It's like you fed a Niggle monster. Like, here's a
Niggle monster. Oh my God.
Like, all I can see is like this one little Niggle monster, and you have a Niggle, and he's like,
I'm just gonna put it out there. If anyone is listening is like a designer or an artist or something, and you want to draw a picture or create a representation of the Niggle monster, do it.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
You don't want to feed your Niggle monster with little Niggles, because he morphs into bigger, badder,
messier
things. Mm-hmm. And that's like, don't feed I mean, maybe that would be the sign off today, not to feed your Niggle monster.
Don't feed your Niggle monster. I like that. And remember, don't feed your Niggle monster. Like, it's that, I mean, it really is.
It really is that simple.
It really is that simple. Because the thing about it is that, and there's like in our experience, and it's not to say that this is the way it would be for every friendship. It's like there's a curve that you go through. There's a journey that you go through. If right at the beginning of your friendship, before you've had the hard conversations phase, before you've kind of navigated your way through that kind of crucible of like, oh, this is a bit difficult. Oh, I want to do this, but oh, look, oh God, she said that. That's cool. Oh, wow, like I could do this. And look, this is a way that we can kind of come together. And you build that foundation of trust and honesty and connection and that kind of sense of feeling safer around somebody because you've done that. If you haven't done any of that and you just come in with niggles from the beginning, people are like, what the hell is she doing? Like, that, why? Like, that's not a big deal. And a lot of people are like, it seems like you're addressing these tiny, that you're making a big deal out of something tiny. So there is a kind of journey, there's a path, there's a niggle path.
Is that where the Niggle monster lives?
It might be where the Niggle monster lives. The Niggle monster lives on the... Well, I mean, the Niggle monster kind of exists anyway you're not dealing with the Niggles. So the Niggle monster's present until you go through the hard conversations phase.
He's like peeking behind the trees as you're walking down the path.
I see you down there. I'm
that Niggles for me.
I'm coming for those Niggles. I love this. I love us. I love just how, like, I can start with something like Niggles and you jump on the freaking Niggle train.
We have never talked about a Niggle monster before.
No, this is the first time.
You are literally hearing this here first, and I have a feeling it might become
a thing. It's coming. It's
like,
become
I want a plush Niggle monster.
It hasn't. It's not going to become a thing. It is already a thing. Like, we have made it a thing today on this podcast.
Watch it become a bigger thing.
Right. Which point? It might be purple. It might have to be purple.
Purple and green.
Ooh, purple and green. Good combo. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Niggle monster. But we don't want to feed the Niggle monster.
Nope.
The thing about it is that it's going to be there until you have these hard conversations. And then when you have the hard conversations, if you then don't start to address the niggles, that's when the Niggle monster is going to kind of chow down and become bigger and bigger. And it's more of a thing to deal with. Like, if you don't feed the Niggle monster, it actually becomes this like cute little like furry kind of creature that...
It kind of reminds... it reminds me of Gremlins.
I was just thinking the same thing.
You can have Gizmo, or you can have that thing that happens when you feed them.
Right. After midnight. Don't get your Niggle monster wet either. Like, if you haven't seen the movie Gremlins, I'm realizing that only people of a certain age will probably have seen the movie Gremlins.
That is impossible.
That was 80s, right?
Yeah, there's possibly people out here from the last episode that's like, Death Becomes Her. What the
hell? If you don't know Death Becomes Her, Gremlins is going even further back.
Yeah. But it's like this cute little puffy pom-pom of, like, you want to put your face in it,
and it sings and it goes.
It's like a Furby. It's
very cute.
It was the design for the Furby. I think the Furby was
very
inspired by Gizmo the Gremlin. And when you feed these things after midnight,
Gizmo isn't a gremlin.
Didn't he turn into one in the first one?
No, Gizmo. No, what happens now is that if you get Gizmo wet, you get more. They've got a name. I can't remember that. He's got something different.
Spawn.
He's called something else. All I've got in my head is a Tamagotchi, and I know that's not it because that's those are the little.
That's the
pets.
little egg you have to
the little
keep
egg
alive.
pet that you have to keep alive. But there's something like that. It's Oh God, that's going to really annoy me now. We're going to.
Is it going to niggle you?
It's going to niggle me. Like and because it's going to niggle me, I'm going to check it as soon as I finish this episode. We're going to put it in the show notes. Oh, that's really going to irritate me. It's been a while since I've seen gremlins. But Gizmo isn't a gremlin. Gizmo is an entirely different creature. And then what ends up happening is that when Gizmo gets wet, Gizmos, whatever the Gizmos is, and gremlins multiply if you get them wet. And what happens is in the first one, Gizmo gets wet and spawns these other, whatever they are.
Gizmos.
I think it might begins with an N. I'm not sure. But the other gizmo creatures. And then if you feed them after midnight, which is kind of a weird thing because it's like technically everything's after midnight. So like, I'm like, it must be between like midnight and 7 a.m. or something. But they don't specify that. They just say
only
after
in like
midnight.
the Eastern time zone as well.
Right, exactly. So if you like feed them after midnight, that's when they turn into gremlins, which are these kind of furless, icky green creatures that are nasty and have teeth and claws and
they are
chaos.
assholes.
Yeah,
like,
they are
assholes.
Yeah, exactly.
Purposely, mindfully, like just trying to fuck shit up.
Yeah, exactly. And so the thing about it is that if you don't feed it, this is such a good metaphor. Like
Right?
if you don't feed it, you get the cute, cuddly, gizmo-ish kind of creature. But if you feed it, that's when you get the gremlins. And so this is why it's so important for you to recognize. And this is, again, one of those things that when your needs are well met, if something is niggling you, you can feel it. You can it's like this. Hello? And
it might actually not even be that. Claire's like physically poking herself if you're not watching on the podcast. But it could even be something as simple as me being like, I'm not touching you.
Yes.
I'm not touching you. Like if you've ever had somebody not touch you.
It's like, no, not touching, can't get mad. Non-touching, can't get mad. Like, but you're in your personal space still, crossing a boundary still.
Like that's that feeling of like, just stop. Like,
yeah.
Like obviously well, in many situations it's a playful, just like literally I'm not actually touching you, but just that energetic, like,
You're in my space in a way that I don't need. And what boundaries are what's okay and what's not okay. What you're doing is not okay. Whether you think it should be okay, whether you're actually touching me or not is irrelevant. It's not okay right now.
My intent is to be funny and playful. Your impact is that you're crossing my boundaries and niggling the shit out of me.
Exactly. So it's a little bit like, excuse me. It's a little bit like I've adopted the seltzer thing. So I'm having a little bit
so
more.
She's adopting the seltzer burps.
Yes, I'm adopting the seltzer burps. So it's like if you imagine like this. So if I go back to kind of tapping my skin, like initially that doesn't really bother you that much. If that goes on for minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, that same thing, it's the same action, but in actual fact, you probably find it's going to bruise. And then if it's tapping on a bruise, that's going to hurt even more. And this is why like the niggle thing, like if you don't address it, it becomes this bigger thing. If you don't address it, that's what you're doing in terms of feeding the niggle monster, because you're allowing it to have its niggles rather than actually addressing them, getting it out in the open air and then clearing them. There's nothing left for the niggle monster to eat at that point. I love the niggle monster. I'm just saying. So
we had talked about in our podcast anniversary episode about like what we were excited for season 2, and I had said I'm actually excited for whatever we don't have planned, and like this is exactly what I mean. Like
at some point I want us to have a cute, cuddly, gizmo-ish type creature that's like the cute one, and then like what happens if you feed the niggle monster. Like I can see this happening. Like it's going to become a thing.
It's going to be a cartoon.
Well, oh my goodness. The Niggle Monster cartoon. Oh my goodness. There's so many things that can happen with it. So the thing about it is that this happens with us all the time. Deliberate use of absolutes. We literally use this all the time. And there's two things that tend to happen when we're addressing these things. The first thing is we will often name it as a niggle because it's like it lets the other person know, like, this isn't a big deal. This is not I don't want to have a big conversation about this. It's a small thing, but I still want to clear it. Like, that's important to me. And I can't remember. There was something that happened like a couple of weeks ago where I was like to you, like the Nigglish of Niggles. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah. So
it's probably something ridiculous. I'm going to be like, oh God, we've just shared this on the podcast.
No, it's actually a really good example. I was going to bring it up regardless of whether you did, because it just shows how easy it is between us. Because like Claire said, usually we're at the point where, like, can I just clear something with you? And
that was the second thing I was going to say. The first thing is we'll address the fact that it's a niggle. So we say the side. And the first thing, and the other thing that we say about it is, I just want to clear this, because our intention is we want to get it out of the space. And we're very clear in our language use of, like, I just want to clear this with you. That's why I'm bringing it up. I'm not doing this to make you feel bad. I'm not doing this to have a big conversation. I want it. So yes, thank you. That was the other thing. Back to Serena.
So I was in Claire's room and she was in the bathroom doing something, and she comes out and she's like, can I just clear a quick niggle with you? And I'm like, of course.
And this one was like, this is the niggliest of niggles. Like, I can't even believe I'm going to say this because it's so ridiculous. That's how niggly it was. That's how teeny tiny of a niggle it was.
And it was still present.
It was, I just noticed it was in the space.
So let's get rid of it if you don't want it there. So she comes out and she's like, can I clear a quick niggle with you? I'm like, yeah, of course. And in my mind, she's coming out of the bathroom. I'm like, oh, did I, like, am I leaving the light on too much? I'm usually mindful of that, but did I do it that time? So I'm thinking she wants to clear, like a small niggle, like a light. Because that's how small it is usually with us. And she's like, oh, this is so ridiculous. You know how you said that you had, you were going to put a calendar reminder in to do a post?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, and she's like, and then you didn't, and then you had to kind of come back to me to remember.
Well, actually, I remember exactly what it was now. What happened is that we split the Facebook. We've transitioned from how we were doing things in terms of our social media to a new way of doing things, and we're splitting it between the two of us. And what happened is that as we were making the decision over who was going to do what, there were certain things that I was going to do, and there were certain things that Serena was going to do. And up until this point, I've been doing pretty much all of that. So it was about, like, how do we spread the load between the two of us? And what happened is that when I asked her and she was like, so which days am I going to need to do it? And I was like, oh, could you do, like, it will be this day, this. Does this work for you? And I would then do this. How does that feel? And she's like, yeah, that feels good. And then what she said to me was, she said, if I don't do it, can you nudge me and let me know? And there was an element of, like, the reason it niggled me, where I was like, okay, so we're splitting this, so I don't have to do this anymore. So I'm not having to think about it and I'm not having to worry about it, but I have to still check whether you're doing it to let you know if you haven't done it. So actually I do still need to be, and if I've got to do that, I might as well just do it myself anyway, because it's probably quicker and easier to do that than it is to scan through the group and find out whether you've done it or not. Rather than, and the thing I was saying to her was, like, that kind of made it feel like it was still on my plate. Like, I still had to think about it. I still had to worry about it, rather than you being like, actually, I'll set an alarm or I'll set a reminder in my calendar so that I'm going to remind myself to do it, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. And it was that tiny of a thing, but it was just one of those things where I'm like, and like, talking through it, you can see how, well, yeah, the whole point of the conversation was for me not to be doing this work. But in me needing to remind Serena about it, which she's got other tools that she could do that for herself with, I was still feeling a sense of responsibility for those things, which the whole point of the conversation was to remove that responsibility from me. It was a really small thing. And how did you respond?
I mean, she said, I'm like, yep. You are right. And that was it. Because it was one of those, I mean, it was such a small thing that could have something like that was really teeny. And the reason why I brought up the whole light situation part of it is because once you had cleared that niggle, it was almost as if you did tell me to turn off the light when I leave the bathroom, because that was there was that amount of charge about it, because we just cleared it. It's like, Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, why would we split up work just for you to have to still do the mental labor of the work?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
no. Okay.
And when I've got the means to be able to do it, like that reminder, I can get through other ways. Like there are other things, there are tools I've got that I can use to remind myself without you needing to remind me to do it.
And sometimes just that reminder, like, you have tools. Mm-hmm. And that's what clearing that niggle did.
Yeah.
It reminded me, I have tools, use my resources. It made sure that I was able to see what I had done in a situation. Claire was then able to process an emotion, like she was able to be witnessed in it and be like, hey, I'm feeling this. Like, okay. Like,
and it's a minor thing that I'm feeling. It's not like, oh God, I'm feeling this thing and I need you to witness me in it. It's more like there's this thing, it's kind of irritating. It's like niggling me a little bit. Could we clear it? Now, the interesting thing is that using this example is that because we are a partnership and I don't go, I've given this to Serena, I'm not going to think about it ever again. The interesting thing is I still had her back on the couple of times when she hasn't done something. I'm like, hey, just checking in. Have you done this? So I'm actually still backing her up, but I don't feel like it's my responsibility to do that. I know it's her responsibility and I'm trying to support her. And even in how I did, like, I remember there was one day where like there was one that got missed and then there was another day where she'd done one of them but hadn't done the other. And I'm like, I don't know whether you're doing this intentionally to kind of space things out in the day or whether you've forgotten that that's part of what you need to do or whether there's something else going on. So it wasn't like you haven't done the thing you said you were going to do and you were going to set up calendar reminders so that you did it so I don't have to worry about this anymore. I'm like, hey, I'm just checking in. And she was like, actually, you know what? The other day I meant to space it out timing wise and I totally forgot. Life took over. And today it's mindful that I'm going to make the other post later. And in that, and I was like, cool, like I know how it is. I'm just wanting to check in with you. Right? So I was actually still doing the thing that Serena had asked me to do, but the fact it wasn't my responsibility, it didn't feel as heavy with me. And I felt like, okay, I'm supporting her in her job. It's not my job to check that she's doing her job. Well, and that subtle difference made a huge difference.
It did. And it also, like, I'm going to go back to the Niggle monster because I'm so fond of him right now.
We're going to need to name the Niggle monster at some point.
Ooh, that sounds like a
community thing. Yeah. You got ideas for the Niggle monster name? Send them our way.
Yeah. If Claire hadn't cleared that niggle and she fed that one to the little niggle monster there, and then I had spaced on a post after that, because that's what happened. The post that I missed was after that conversation. That would have been another niggle to feed the monster. And if she had decided to feed that and it ever happened, like just that one situation could have compounded and created a monster. But that's probably not all the niggles that are going to happen. So you're feeding, okay, I'm going to feed the niggle monster the stuff that's bothering me about the Facebook posting, and the niggle monster feeding about the, this or that.
And the interesting thing is like, I was a little niggled that the post got missed the other day. Tiny niggle, not a big deal. Mainly because I've been doing it by myself for so long. So it was like I was a tiny little niggle. But if I'd been niggled about the fact that the post hadn't gone out, and I'd felt on top of it that the responsibility of like, oh God, she's making this my responsibility because I have to check whether she's done it or not because she's asked me. And it was like, no, she's not doing that. If I'm allowing that, if I'm taking that on and I'm saying, yes, I'll do that, I'm doing that for my, so it would have been another, like the same thing would have had like double niggles. So it's like, okay, Niggle Monster gets a little bonus treat as well every time a post gets missed. And every time I have to go into the group to check, even if she's posted it, every day that I have to go in, which is pretty much every day, I have to go into the group to check whether the post is done. I'm going to get niggled by that because it's like, why am I doing this? The whole point was for me to do less work. I'm actually doing more work now to check whether Serena's doing the work. Every single one of those, have a little treat, Niggle Monster. Have another treat, Niggle Monster. And before you know, I've got a freaking gremlin in my living room. Like, what am I meant to be doing with that? Like,
And I'm sitting there like, why is she so spicy today?
Right.
Like, and it's because she's feeling all of these things. And I'm like, oh, well.
Compounded up.
And I'm having human moments. And now those human moments, which are human and we treat them as human moments, they're anchors for me to be like, okay, what are you going to do so this doesn't happen? You changed it so this happened. Like, I set alarms. I put it in my calendar and then I missed my alarm. Okay, what are you going to do to make sure that doesn't happen? Mm-hmm. And that's how we learn and grow, and that's how our friendship, that's part of the food we feed our friendship. We feed our friendship that food instead of the Niggle monster.
Well, and it's almost like where you're like I'm afraid I'm going to derail the analogy, but it's like when you feed the Niggle monster, obviously that becomes the kind of gremlin-y thing. But it's like actually when you clear the Niggle, it keeps it as the cute fluffy animal. Like it's like that's what's present between the two of us. Like I'm not worried about, and like when Serena missed, it wasn't like oh for God's sake she's missed the post, and genuinely I'm like just checking what's going on, because
and there wasn't an accusation in there like, oh, you missed the post again. It was like just checking in, just
because I know her intention is to show up for our business and do the things that she says she's going to do. So she hasn't done it. There's going to be a reason for it. Either she hasn't set herself up to do it initially, which was the first thing that happened where she hadn't set the alarms. But I now know that's not going to be the case because we've had that conversation. So it could be that she's got something going on at her end, which is actually way more important than the Facebook post. So I can be like checking in like, is everything okay? Have you got some stuff going on that's actually the reason that you're not doing the thing that you've said you're going to do? Or it may be, what was the other option? Oh, the other option was that she was doing it intentionally. Like she hadn't posted because she knew that it was better for us to spread those posts out than for us to do them all in one go. Like that was her doing more than what we'd agreed. What we'd agreed is she's putting 2 posts in the group. Actually, her spacing those posts out takes more time and energy for her and more focus, but actually it supports our business more. So that's her like wanting to do it as well as she possibly can. And if I come in going, what the hell, you missed the one on Tuesday, you've only done one of them today, what's going on? Like she'd be like, well, I was trying to do it the right way, but if this is how I'm going to get, this is the reaction I'm going to get for doing it the right way, I'm just going to do it the easy way because that's like it's going to get me less issue. Like it could have, and that would have then niggled her. And like if that hadn't been like, and this is the thing, is that how we respond to each other, my not dealing with my niggles then produces a niggle for her to feed her niggle monster.
And we're going to get these 2 Niggle monsters that go to a party together and they're like, rah!
Absolutely, like chaos reigns. I mean, chaos often reigns when we're at a party together. No, not really. Like fun and adventure reigns when we're at a party together. But that's when the chaos and everything. And the thing is that every single one of those niggles, it's like my unmet needs are roaring at her unmet needs, which are then receiving that as another impact to her needs, which is then going to cause a reaction. And like it's this like chain reaction where this tiny thing has all of a sudden become this massive thing because it hasn't been dealt with. And the interesting thing is the opposite is also true. Like when you clear these things, when they are early and when you address them as even something that could be a pretty big deal. There was a situation like we literally just cleared where Serena actually was calling herself in and saying, hey, this thing came up and I realized that was my privilege. And then as she explained the situation, I'm like, oh, hold on a second. Yeah, there's some privilege in that and there's some fragility and there's some of that dynamic going on. But actually, I didn't do the thing that I did something I said I wasn't going to do. And Serena understood why I'd done it, but I said I wasn't going to do it. And therefore I'm like, no, that's on me. That part of it is my responsibility. I'm going to clear that because I don't want you taking on something that you have a right to be niggled by that. Because I haven't done the thing I said I'm going to do, or I've done the thing I said I wasn't going to do. And I want to make sure I clear that. Now that for us, very, 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 very rarely will I do something that I say I'm not going to do or not do something I say I am going to do. That could be a really big deal for us. And because we cleared it, it was cleared. And it was interesting. Like, it wasn't like, Serena didn't even clear that. She wasn't like, hey, you said you weren't going to do this and then you did it. And I'm like, oh shit. I was like, hold on a second. I'm listening to her and I'm like, hold on, I've got a part to play in this as well. Yeah, you've got your stuff around it and I appreciate the fact that you're owning that. I also need to own something in this and I need to clear that niggle, because if I don't clear that, because of the humanity and the connection between the two of us, if I realize I've impacted her and I don't clear that, it's like a guilt niggle is going to sit with me until I address that. So I'd rather just address it and clear it so it's not in the space.
Well, and it's funny that you brought up that. I mean, it literally just happened. It was in between episodes.
I mean, literally less than an hour ago.
We do this consistently. Yeah.
I just brought up the niggle that just happened.
Yep. Oh, kind of like the niggle that we were talking about with the Facebook post. I could have, once we had gotten to a point and I had forgotten one of the posts, but was mindful because I had forgotten that post, had set an extra alarm to make sure I didn't miss it. I could have pretended like that missed one wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. I could have just ignored the fact that was part of the conversation and been like, oh no, I have it. I'm mindfully doing it today. But I was like, no, that was my bad. I completely spaced on that. I had my intentions there. Yeah. I didn't set the second alarm, blah, 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 blah. Whatever it was, I was upfront with what the truth was so that I could clear that part. So there wasn't a looming on my end like, oh, well, I wasn't really honest about that. I know I ignored this, because then my niggle monster, it's like her niggle monster hands a cookie to mine and is like, here you go, buddy.
Enjoy, chow down. I'll see you on the other side where we'll create chaos together. Mm-hmm. And that's what ends up happening. And this is something we talk about frequently. It's like these clearing of niggles. I mean, I do it with a lot of my closest people now. It's like, can I just clear something with you? And the second I say, can I just clear something with you, there may be does that mean that I've done something? There's a momentary, I know this is only going to be a little thing, but I don't even want to do little things that are going to cause you any kind of impact. But most importantly, the focus is on, can we clear it? Mm-hmm. Like, I want to clear this. I don't want it hanging around. Like, I want this out of the space of our friendship, out of the space of whatever relationship I have with this person. I don't want it in the space. So if I can address it with somebody and be like, hey, and
address it with the person that you're in the situation with. Mm-hmm. That's the big thing. Clearing a niggle only happens between
the two people involved.
The niggler and the niggly.
This is going to be a whole niggle language, isn't it?
I love it.
It's amazing. But you're right. Otherwise, what it does is it will often amplify the niggle, because you're feeding the niggle monster by shit like going to somebody else and be like, it's like
you're going to the restaurant for the niggle monster. Yes. You're like, I'm going to share this lovely meal. Oh, feed. You're going to feed me too.
Yeah, absolutely. The niggle monster's like, yes.
They love company.
Bring it on. Absolutely. And so it's like, Serena's right. You need to clear it with the person who it's present with, because that's the only way that it clears. And when you do that, it's like, it feels so good. And the thing about it is it's about clearing the niggle with someone, and it's through the hard conversations you can see how somebody is going to respond to you bringing something to their door. And if you have the hard conversation and they lean in, it's like, oh, this could be somebody I could clear niggles with, because they're going to be like, oh, cool. Yeah. So sorry. Thank you for letting me know. Moving on. That's what happened with me and Serena. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't clear niggles with her to begin with. It was only when I saw how she reacted to the big stuff. I'm like, oh, and it's like, well, there's this thing that's in the space. Well, I kind of want to get rid of it. Oh, this is somebody who I think will respond to that. And then when I started clearing niggles, that's when she's like, oh, we can clear niggles. Like,
right. I got some niggles.
I got some niggles to bring to the party. Like, I don't want to feed my niggle monster.
And that's actually a great kind of leadway into how this can, like, we do this consistently and, like I said, constantly, and how it's spread into different relationships, like my work relationships at my former position. I'd go into my boss, I'm like, I just need to clear this because I don't want it in this space. And sometimes it didn't have to do with them. Sometimes it just was like, you know, this really irritated me and I don't want it to affect our day. And if I don't,
Can I jump in? There's a difference between clearing the niggle and processing what's up. So as we said, you can only clear the niggle with the person that's actually addressed it. If that person doesn't have the capacity to address it, or they're not going to handle it in a way which is going to clear the niggle, it's going to amplify the niggle, gives more than the niggle monster to eat. Actually, in that situation, it may be a question of like, okay, what needs have been impacted by this? I'm going to meet them for myself. And actually what I want to do is I want to process this with somebody else so that I'm not holding on to the niggle anymore. It's not bothering me anymore.
Nuance, you say?
The nuance of needs. It shows up all the freaking time.
The one place that this has been kind of transformational, the one place is clearing niggles. It's such a simple thing, but it really has been transformational, is in my relationship with my husband. Yeah. Because those little things that just fucking go up your ass sideways. It can be a dirty dish, or why do you throw your sock outside of the hamper? Like, you've got it to the hamper, put it in the hamper. And like, those little things were the things that I would like.
And in most relationships, those are the things that fester.
It's the little one-off things, and sometimes it's the unconscious things. Sometimes it's the not being mindful. There's many different reasons that these things happen. But for me to be like, I'll go home and I'll be like, can I just clear something? He's like, sure. And I'm like, the dish has been there for like 2 days. Like, I'm not cleaning it out of principle at this point, but it's annoying. Like in something like that, and it's like 2 days ago, if I had been like, hey, are you gonna clear your dish? I could have cleared it then, but I would hold on to it. And now he's coming to me, he's like, can I just clear something? And I'm like, yes. Like, clear that little thing so I know what's bothering you, know what irritates you, because sometimes you don't realize what the irritations are for somebody else, what their triggers are, what, you know, like.
And it's so funny because like in those, like the whole, the sock near the hamper thing, it's like the dishes near the dishwasher thing. Like this happens in so many relationships where it's like you got the dish that close to the dishwasher, or the sock is that close to the hamper. But because I'm not addressing, and it's that whole thing of like, I'm not going to do this because it's not actually my job to pick up after you. Like, you're an adult. This is your responsibility to kind of take care of your own stuff. But it's like that sock that's next to the hamper, like at that point, when it is just that sock the first time it happens, you feed that sock to the niggle monster. The niggle monster's like, haha, okay. But it's like, if you don't feed the sock to the niggle monster at that point and you leave it, the sock becomes bigger and it becomes stinkier and it becomes sweatier.
Which is much more desirable for that niggle monster.
Oh, that niggle monster's like,
like it
bring it on. So it's not like a little snack at this point.
You got more funk on there?
It's not like, it's like, you got what?
More funk on there.
I thought you said something else then. I was like, I'm not sure we want to bring that into this. Like, I don't think that's the niggle monster's jam. But hey, anyway. So the thing is, like, when it's a sock, it's like a little snack. It's like a little treat. Whereas it becomes a freaking 4-course meal after a few days. And it's like, oh, bring that on. I'm going to take that. And this niggle monster then becomes 4 times bigger in size. And that's the point at which it's like this sock that was initially just a small niggle becomes this monumental argument that goes on for days and we won't speak to each other. And everyone's like, this is over a sock. It's not about the sock. It's about the fact that the sock wasn't dealt with. I remember a situation in which somebody, when I was doing a house sit, somebody had used a shower gel that I asked them not to use because it belonged to the homeowners. And it was like, and this is actually a really good example of what happens when you don't have when somebody doesn't have the capacity to deal with these sorts of things and they don't understand what's really going on. So I'd asked them not to use it. I'd said that they could use mine. And I was like, please don't use too much of that, because I never use the homeowner's stuff. Whenever I'm going and doing a house sit, I just don't do that. I always bring my own stuff. I normally pack theirs away so that I don't accidentally use it, because I want the place to return back to the place in the same condition it was, and everything being present as it was, like kitchen stuff, I normally pack that away so I don't accidentally use some of their stuff, because I want them to come back to their house in the same way, unless they've said, oh, we bought this for you, like that's different, but most of the time I don't use it. And I'd also had a conversation with this person about the fact that they used a lot of shower gel, like, I mean, absurd amount of shower gel. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, how dirty are you that you need that much shower gel? It doesn't matter how dirty you are, you still don't need that much shower gel. And I said to them, like, I was like use mine or what have you. I was like, just please don't use that. And this shower gel was the other side of the room, so they have to, every time they would have to get out the shower to use it and put it back again afterwards. Now it was one of those, it was in a bottle that wasn't see-through, so you couldn't see how much was in it. Well, when I was resetting the house at the end, I was like, I went to go and move the shower gel, and it was nearly empty. This was a full bottle when I got there, and they hadn't spent that much. This is how much shower gel was used. And I was like, what the hell? One, I asked you not to use that. Two, if you told me you'd used it, I'd have been able to replace it for the homeowners so that it wouldn't have been a big deal. And I tried to clear it with this person, and this person shut down and actually ended the connection that we had, because it was like, oh, I'm this terrible person, I'm just going to keep letting you down and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, if I can't address something like that with you.
Shower gel.
Yeah. And the thing about it is that it was the irritation, like it was a niggle for me, but it was also like, I've communicated with you about this. I've told you what's going on. You know that I like, I ordered another one out on Amazon. I told the homeowners it would be there in 2 days. I'm like, I've had a friend come to visit. They used the shower gel. I wouldn't normally have done that. And they're like, oh, that's not a big deal. You didn't need to do that. And it was like, that's how I choose to do this. So the actual situation was an easy one to fix. And he was like, oh, well, do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? And I'm like, you figure out how to fix this. Like, I don't, like, this is niggling me right now. Like, it's really easy. Like, I went and I found the thing on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And I ordered it. Like, you could have done that. Like, but it's like I'm already trying to juggle 3 million things because I'm in the process of a changeover in terms of how homes and house sits right now. And it was really interesting because this was somebody who were like, because their needs were unmet, they took that, here's the thing that I'm niggled about, and made it, I'm a terrible person, blah. And that's where they went into their own stuff, focused on themselves, didn't focus on me or the impact it was having on me. And that it was adding a little layer of stress to an already stressful situation, and then checked out completely. And it was like, okay, this is obviously not somebody that I'm meant to be in this closer relationship with, because the fact that I can't clear these niggles and I can't deal with this and trust them to be like, oh my God, you're so right. I kept forgetting to bring my own stuff with me, and I forgot that you like, and you know what? I'll order some right now. It'll be there in a week. Easy. Done. Apology series. Go like, we'll share the apology, link to the apology podcast underneath here, where it's like, what do? I'm going to acknowledge what I've done. I'm going to address the situation, which is making it up. I'm going to make amends. It was shower gel. There wasn't really a huge amount of amends to make. The main thing was I just wanted the thing replaced so that, and I'm like, I gave them a period of time where I was like, I'm doing other stuff. Are they going to figure it out? And they didn't figure it out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure it out. I'll deal with it and I'll process it with somebody else. And at that point, it's like, okay, this is obviously not a close relationship that's going to work for me, because I want to be able to clear something like that with somebody. And I know it's like, I know if I'd addressed something with Serena, that she'd have been like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I got this. Don't worry about it. Send me the address it needs to get to. I'll make sure it arrives. And it would be done. And I know that if it had been a bigger thing, like, I mean, we had a situation not that long ago where there was something I brought up to Serena that was like, hey, there's this thing that I just want to address with you. And it was something where Serena realized, it was like, oh, yeah, that's a bit more of a bigger deal. That's not a niggle. That's a my bad kind of thing. And she went through the apology series. She made amends. She like bought me a gift of something that she knew that I would like to say, I'm sorry. Like, this is, I'm addressing the situation, but I'm actually going to go a little further and I'm going to do something nice for you to make amends for the fact that I did this thing in the first place. So it's like, I know the people who I can trust are the people who are going to be like, oh, yeah, sorry, my bad, got it, going to do something about it. And if you can do it when it's a niggle, oh my God, the space is so clean.
Yeah.
the relationship is so clean.
Every time you walk through the door, it's like, I'm not going to be hit. Like, there's not going to be anything that's not going to be talked about right away if there is something present. But like, think of how many little niggles we kind of carry along, carry with us. And it's like, you go into situations and people that you love. I feel like people that you love niggle you the most.
Right.
Often.
Not because they're closer. You spend more time with them.
Right.
So there's more opportunity to niggle you.
And it's like you walk in with that kind of like that little bit of hesitation. It doesn't stop you from walking through the door, but you're like, what am I going to deal with? Or are they going to impact me? Or what?
It's almost like they get slapped around the face with these little niggles, and it's like
oh, do the niggles have little like fly swatters?
Well, I feel like it's like God, I can't even think what they were called now. There were these like little snacks in the UK. They were like a kind of chip or like a snack of that kind of. It was like almost like a crackery kind of thing. They began with N as well. I used to really like them, and I can't remember what they're called. It's going to niggle me. I'm going to go figure it out at some point. But there were these small little stick things that were like irregular in shape, and I've got this image of like someone just like chucking that at my face. It's not a big deal, but it's really going to annoy me. And it's like, oh no, don't like keep your niggles to yourself, kind of thing. And it makes a huge difference.
It does.
When you don't have to worry, because I know that Serena's going to walk through the door here and there's none of that in the space. And the second there is something, and here's the thing, if she's niggled about something, chances are I'll know about it. Like, I'll be like, everything okay? Like, I can sense that there's...
Even if I try to be like, no, this is...
She figured that out pretty early. Yeah. It's like, there's no point in trying to hide my niggles. She's going to see the niggles no matter what.
Yeah. And I have to say that in clearing niggles, a lot of times you can learn stuff for yourself, even if it's a niggle that somebody like somebody else has created it. And I'm going to go back to the example with my husband with the dishes, because I am just as guilty as he is. Sometimes putting that dish right above the dishwasher, I could just as easily open it up and put the dish in there themselves. So I'm sure there are many dish niggles that have been on both sides of our relationship. But when I started clearing things, it made me become more aware of my own actions. So I may go to put that plate down, and sometimes I'll still just put it on the counter, and then I get distracted or something comes up and it stays there for longer than either of us would want it. But more often than not, I go to put that plate down. I'm like, I would be niggled if this happened. Like, if I was on the other side of this, like, why am I going to even, like, two more seconds and threw it in.
Right.
Like, and it makes me more mindful of, okay, what's niggling me? What are those teeny little things? Like, I don't want to feed anybody else's niggle monster, or like create anybody else's niggle monster either. So like, it makes me more mindful in what I'm doing, because I'm clearing the things that are bothering me, and by saying them and witnessing it for myself and being like, this is present. And I'm gonna mention that it's present.
And the thing about it is that there's also that learning about the other person of things that you don't know about. Like, I mean, we talked about on a previous episode about the seltzer thing. Like, Serena didn't know that there were certain flavors of seltzer that I liked and certain flavors of seltzer that I don't. And if she was finishing like the last of the seltzer I liked while there's a ton of the seltzer that she likes in there, I'm like, there's a little niggle around that. She wouldn't have known that because we hadn't had the conversation. But by having the conversation, she's like, oh, I didn't know that you didn't like that kind of seltzer, but you like that one. That's good to know. Like, you get to know more about the person you're in relationship with. You get to know more about the things that you can do. And we talked in the previous episode about
those little and sometimes it's those little things that.
And remembering, when someone remembers the little things and acts on them, it's like you feel like, oh, they remembered that. That really means something to me. Like, it shows that that I'm important to them because they're remembering the small things. And I can't remember what I was going to say now, but it's fine. It's obviously not that important. I think that it's just when you do that, when you're making that, that's what I was going to say, was like, we talked in a previous episode about the fact that there's you, there's the other person, and there's the relationship, which is like that third entity. And it's like, that's how you support that relationship, is by, one, making sure there aren't any niggles hanging around on it, but doing the things, like learning how to show up in a way which is going to be supportive to the other person. You're not doing it because the other person needs you to meet their needs, because they don't. That's their responsibility, as long as they're adult and they have the ability to do it for themselves. But that's how one of the ways you support the relationship is that by doing things that are going to be supportive. And it might meet the other person's needs. It's not about you can't meet the other person's needs. It's about you don't want to be dependent on the other person to get your needs met or them to be dependent on you to get your needs met. Once your needs are met, you can be meeting other people, like each other's needs all the time, and it strengthens and nourishes the relationship. It doesn't create that dependency that creates this pressure and the tension in the relationship, which is what most people experience. This is like, I love this episode. Like, this is like something, and it is something that we use all the time. It like literally I would say we probably use this on average once a day, once every other day that we're together. On average. Yeah. There are some days we don't mention it at all. There are some days we might clear 3 in a day. Mm-hmm. And it is the small things. And every time we do that, and Serena was like, oh wow, yeah, so sorry, like I trust her that little bit more and I feel closer to her. And when you've had situations with people where you've spoken to them and you haven't been heard and the thing hasn't been addressed, or there's been a defensiveness, it makes you appreciate this even more. So find the people that you can clear niggles with, because those are the relationships which they're so clean, they're so clear, and it means that everything that you do,
it's easier.
It's easier. And there's no, like when we have fun, there's nothing getting in the way of that fun. When we're doing work, there's nothing getting in the way of us doing our work. When we are out there, like no matter what we're doing, there's nothing getting in the way of doing that. And that's the thing, is that niggles get in the way of your relationships. They get in the way of the fun, they get in the way of the intimacy, they get in the way of the connection. And it's like, let's get those out of the way. Mm-hmm. Clear them. They have no place here. So anything you want to share about niggles before we finish?
And this is a reminder to not feed your niggle monster.
Yes, we don't want to be feeding the niggle monster. Mm-mm. Yeah, it's I think this is going to run and run. It's like, oh, I got like the niggle monster has got like I've got something here. Like he's going to get it if we don't clear it. Can we clear it, please? Because like none of us want to deal with the niggle monster. Mm-hmm. Like no,
he's just annoying.
Yeah, he really is. And that's not a niggle. That's when, and the thing about it is that when we feed the niggle monster, that's when it's actually frustration or irritation or anger. Like those are the things like that. The thing that was the niggle then becomes these more intense emotions that are even more challenging to deal with. So let's deal with them when they're little.
It's like the niggle monster puts on a irritation sweater.
Yeah.
And then
the anger anorak, like
disappointment Dickie.
Right. This could run and run. I think we're going to call it at this point. Nothing more to add? Please say there's nothing more to add.
I'm good.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching us, watching this episode. Anything?
No,
You're just giggling.
I'm just giggling.
It's all good.
I'm giggling at the niggles.
Giggling at the niggles. Giggle niggles.
Giggle niggle.
Or niggle giggles. You've got the niggle giggles.
I got the niggle giggles.
And on that note, thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. To take care of yourself. This is a reminder to take care of yourself. Stay safe. And between now and next time, to continue meeting your own needs. Lots of love.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard
and would like to see some of Serena's awesome facial expressions,
check out the video podcast on YouTube.
And remember, clearing niggles brings you closer.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.